I don't even care if people watch. I was just having a good time. Just put it on YouTube. Why not? Get out there. Show your talent. All right, I'm going to try and beat her one more time. Try and beat her one more time.
Get paid until next week. I got you. I'm Dave. I can spot you up to $500 of your future money instantly.
Up to $500 instantly? What else is in my future?
Tom McDonald, because he's got way better music than Tom McDonald. Every single person who watches this did. He'd hit #1 on the Billboard charts. I'm happy with that. But I also know that we're going to do what we have to do on our end.
Thanks for having me, man. I think it's simulation shifting. All of a sudden, the left loves the FBI going after Trump. It's refund the police. Here we are.
Yeah, I love that they're like, we're anti-fascist, but support federalized, centralized law enforcement going after you.
You know, here we are.
All right, I'm gonna mess your last name. It's Budazzoni, right?
Budazzoni.
Budazzoni.
Yeah, happy
Hold
to
on.
be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, introduce yourself for you.
Yeah, I'm an independent reporter and journalist based out of Dallas. I've been covering a lot of the drag shows, unfortunately, in the area. It is a crazy time. We got the left propping up Big Pharma, propping up these crazy people, these drag shows. So it's interesting stuff.
Hey everybody, Ian Crossan here. Happy to see you guys. And I wanted to mention a couple of things before we get started. One is about the music that we've been working on. Music in the arts is kind of like there is competition in the arts, like who's going to get #1, who's going to get #2, who's going to play on main stage at the Grammys, who's not. But at the same time, it's the kind of industry where you make each other better. The better music that comes out, the people listen to it, that they get more inspired, they get more real, and you start to hear rock and roll. And they were like, why all these great vocalists in the early 90s in Seattle with this grunge scene? Why Chris Cornell, what's his name, Eddie Vedder, and all these phenomenal, because they were making each other better. They were seeing each other and inspiring each other. So keep doing that.
I love how you said, what's his name?
Yeah, what's his name? Eddie Vedder, my hero.
That one guy.
Oh, you
I was
got it
gonna call
wrong. You can't be competitive.
I was
It's
gonna
about
call-
doing your best.
True,
It's
true.
not about being number one.
Yeah,
It's
it
about
is.
doing your best.
It's about elevating someone else to experience it as well, and then you'll automatically you end up becoming number one because they love you so much. The second part is I want to apologize to everybody that worked on Breaking Bad, the TV show. Talked about it on Friday, and I misrepresented the show. Walter White was.
Did you watch it?
No, but enough people that I trust have told me Walter White was trying to make money that when he died that he would have money for his family. He wasn't trying to get money for the treatment. I will though say
it is a component.
the show was pharmaceutical propaganda. We're talking about in 2020, 75% of the commercial space being pharmaceutical companies. I think Breaking Bad also was a pharmaceutical propaganda piece. And we can talk about that later if you guys want.
Real quick, it's not the main I'm watching it. I'm on season 2. I'm almost on season 3. He tells there's people who are going to pay off his bills, and he tells them to F off. So it's like kind of, but not really about that. Anyway, we'll talk about it. Lydia's here.
Before we get into our Breaking Bad conversation again, I have to read the super chat real fast. It's really short. It says, "Only ever wandered" is the Joe Biden version, which I love. That's wonderful. Thank you for that.
Oh man, Seamus, we need you. Only
Yeah.
ever wandered.
Only ever wandered. Yeah. All right, let's get going. Yeah.
All right, check this out from Post Millennial. Vote Republican, Joe Rogan, on how Americans can protect your freedom. Well, everybody knows that Dr. Joe Rogan is who you go to for your political and medical advice. I'm joking, by the way. Calm down, YouTube. And here's what happened. Joe Rogan and Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers got into the harms of COVID policies in a recent episode of The Experience, and Rogan took the opportunity to blast Democrats and give a boost to Republicans. Vote Republican, he said in response to Rodgers' question about what Americans should do about it. Quote, "No one who was alive today had ever experienced a true pandemic. And I'm hoping that now that this is over, people are going to, recognize that some serious errors were made and not repeat those. That's the best you can get out of it. So what do you tell those people?" Rodgers said. "Vote Republican," Rogan said. Rodgers chuckled. "That's what a lot of them are going to do anyway."
Wow.
More than 1 million people transferred over to the Republican Party, I think, in 2021 alone. But you look at guys like Ron DeSantis, who kept Florida open and had some pretty reasonable policies in terms of what to do about COVID and he napped it on television, full stop. DeSantis did not keep it completely open. They did shut down, but eventually, faster than many others, did reopen. There were a bunch of red states that never locked down. Kristi Noem, for instance, they threw a parade for her. He was widely criticized for this, where he was saying, "We need to protect our elders. We need to make sure that medical care is available for those people, and everyone else should be able to do whatever you want to do and protect your freedom." Now, this is the crazy thing. Joe has taken the bold step of laughing and telling people to vote Republican. He's often said he was a liberal. He's defended all of that. Then he's like, people call me right-wing, but I'm a liberal, and he is. He's in favor of universal basic income. Now he's telling people to vote Republican.
But I feel like it's not even an endorsement of the Republican Party. I feel like the Overton window has shifted so far left that it's almost like a rejection vote against the people that are going so far liberal. I don't think it's a typical endorsement of the party as a whole.
Yeah, there was this graph that we showed a long time ago where it's where the political parties are, and they created this spectrum where it was economic left and right, and I think social justice left and right. The Democrats were all extremely hyper-concentrated in racial and economic socialist policy, and the Republicans were spread out away from the social justice stuff, but varying from socialist all the way to laissez-faire capitalism. That was great.
You gotta be careful about calling leftism liberalism as well, because there is an idea of liberalism is you want to be free and open with ideas and let kids kind of explore the world, but sexualizing children is not, I don't think that's liberty. I don't think that that's doing justice to children. It can warp them in their later years.
This is I think on par with what Magic Nawaz refers to as up and down or something. Does he call it up and down?
I think so, like the acting.
Yeah, because he talks about how maybe he doesn't say up and down, but he talks about how religious zealotry is not left or right. It's idea, it's something different. And if you've got people who have a cult ideology that doesn't really fit into any of these political spectrums, political sections or segments, then we got to acknowledge that it's not liberal, it's not left. Like Jacobin, for instance, they're socialists, they're leftists, but they're pro-free speech. They rag on the FBI all the time. They rag on the Democrats, and I'm like, okay, cool, I can respect that, I guess. I don't agree with socialism.
Well, I think Rogan, in the context of these statements, he's talking about the pandemic, right? talking about the way that COVID was handled, and I think a lot of people are just fed up and they see through just exactly everything at this point. I mean, take a look at Fauci's riding off into the sunset in December, apparently. They're shifting gears and shifting the simulation. Politico's putting out articles literally changing the narrative, blaming the vaccine rollout on Trump now. So all the negative effects and all that will be blamed on President Trump coming forward. Dr. Birx is coming out and saying, oh, we knew the whole time they weren't effective. They're saying this. The CDC coming out and saying the same thing. There was the CNN, I don't know, she was some kind of medical something that was like huge on masks.
Deanna Wen?
Yeah, she was like huge on. Now she's come out and said that. Now she's come out and said the masks damaged my own child. So like, it's like I think people get exhausted at some point. Like it goes beyond politics. It's like I'm being driven in this direction. I'm being driven in that direction. CNN keeps telling me this. Okay, now they're changing their mind, and it's just like this constant just exhaustion of the mind where the cult begins to push you and push you. And I think the people that are waking up are just getting fed up.
It's got to break down at some point, right? Like,
This is it.
someone posted a meme, and it was just like, it was Janine Garofalo's quote, I think it was, and it said something like, if you vote, the only way someone can become a Republican is if there's something wrong with them. You can't be an open-minded, well, thinking individual and vote Republican or something like that. And I'm like, that's not an argument about anything. Like, you're literally being like, Republican bad. Like, you didn't say that. Tell me why they're mad and why you think they're wrong to be mad. But that idea, I'm like, if that's what, I don't know if that quote is actually from her, right? But this idea is laughable that people would share it. Like, you've fallen for every major hoax that's happened. Every single one. If there's one thing that gives me hope, that keeps me white-pilled, and reassures me that we are on the correct side, is that we've not fallen for all of these hoaxes. Maybe once or twice we were like, hey, what's that all about? And then it comes out like, oh, okay, that was a hoax. But the left and liberals, every single hoax, every time. And you know what it is? I think a lot of it they wanted to fall for. They wanted Jussie Smollett's story to be true. It was great.
Right.
But it was just so glaringly obvious the dude was making up nonsense. Anybody with a brain. So at what point do the cult leaders lose that ability to convince ignorant people that these hoaxes are real? At what point do the masses just say, like, dude, you've lied every single time? I'm over it.
I have some friends on Facebook from Los Angeles back when I was doing a lot of theater and culture. I guess, I don't know. We were talking about the student loans and like, where's the money coming from? And some people like, I heard that it was going to be, they were just going to charge it off to the loan companies. I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from. I'm like, look. Peter Ducey questions the spokes. What's her title?
Press secretary.
That's her. The press secretary. Where's the money coming from? She dodges the question 3 times in the interview.
I love how nobody knows her name.
And so when I know I
so
can't even
forgettable.
Kareem Jean-Pierre?
Yeah.
Kareem,
Kareem
Jean-Pierre.
And I post the video to my friends in this liberal chat wherever you were mostly, and everyone's just like silent in awe at realizing that they're snowballing the American people. They're going to end up charging people tax money to pay for their own loans ahead of time. So it's like an accelerated repayment to Sally Mae. Like, that's unconscionable, and I cannot imagine that'll pass. If Biden's proposing it, shoot it down, because that is not, you don't make us pay our own loans back early. That doesn't do anybody any justice.
I don't understand like the rejection of like knowing how things are going to play out. Like, everybody should have a house, right? Everybody should have a meal. Everybody should have their loans forgiven. But like, it doesn't work. It's not pragmatic. Like, why are they so Why are they so stuck to these fantasies?
I think they actually want the opposite. And I don't mean the average person. I think the average liberal or Democrat, or they genuinely want people to have it, but they're easily led astray.
Open your eyes, sleepyhead. The day is young. Look up. Look down. Who knows what we might see? We could travel the world. Look at things in a new light. Have family dinners wherever we like. Wake up, sleepyhead. Tomorrow's looking bright. Days In, one of 22 trusted brands by Wyndham.
If you look at capitalism, people invent air conditioning, people have refrigerators, people have clean water, people have nicer and nicer things. Now we got people sitting down with widescreen. You get a wide, like 75 inches for like $500. It's crazy. You go to Best Buy, it's like everybody's got one. Yeah, capitalism is making everybody very, very wealthy. You know what I think? I think a lot of the higher profile people don't like that. You will own nothing and you will be happy. They're looking at the overconsumption. They don't want everyone to live in luxury. They think that causes problems, that causes climate change. So what are they saying? They want to get rid of the airlines. Surprise, surprise, the airlines are like spiraling out of control with mass retirements and cancellations. They're getting what they want. They don't want regular people to be able to do these things. And here's what it boils down to. They're always ragging on, you see them ragging like Jeff Bezos has a $130 million yacht or whatever. But what they really, what these powerful elites, these climate change people, and this is not an indictment this is not support or opposite to the idea of climate change. They want you all to stop having access to vehicles, to gasoline, to cheap food, so that they can keep access to all those things. If you aren't allowed to fly, then they don't have to worry about when they fly because their contribution to climate change is minimal. You see them all flying in private jets. All the private jets flew to Europe for the climate change conference. You know what they're really saying? What they're speaking words, right? But the real thing they're saying is, how can we take it all away from the working class people so that we can keep it?
Right. And I think it's foolish to believe that tyranny somehow just disappears out of planet Earth or out of society or out of mankind, right? It's like it never leaves. There's always going to be like an entity of tyranny somewhere on the globe, wherever you look. And I think if Americans literally believe that, like if you're sitting there saying, you know, that could never happen to America, like you've lost your mind. Like you're losing. You have a losing mindset, whether you're on the left or whether you're on the right. Like even if you're someone that's like, you know, I love my right-wing politician and that person is just always gonna, you know, come through and save everything. It's like you could never let your guard down and put yourself mentally in a position where you're just like gonna be free sailing for the rest of your life. I mean, obviously we all want that, but to think that tyranny is just somehow just gonna, you know, disappear and it's never gonna pop its head up, that's just a literally naive, you know, way of thinking, in my opinion.
The independent media, moderates, libertarians, conservatives, whatever this faction is. I don't like saying the right because not everybody is, but we need something like there's this app called Thunderclap, where what you would do is you would sign up for it, you click a button, and then it would be like, do you accept the terms? If you put yes, on the same day, at the same time, everyone who agreed would tweet out. It would take your Twitter account and tweet out the exact same message, causing an instant trend. It was called Thunderclap. There needs to be something like this to help people organize. The left has institutions that help them organize and remain organized. The right and liberty-minded people need something similar so that you can very easily direct some kind of action on things. Because right now it's so fractured and just across the board, and it's difficult. When you're an individualist, of course, you're not going to be as organized as a cult.
Yeah. You know, I had an interesting interaction. I don't know the name of the company, but where I live, they want to install all of this remote access to like your thermostat, to your air in your house, and even to the point of like getting into your gated community. Like it's all access through your phone. And like they approached me and they're like, hey, you need to sign this paper so we can come in and have your consent to remote access your thermostat, to remote access data in your phone, to have all the data from your phone that we can collect for this company so that we can have that on a daily basis. Like I'm sitting there and like she's like expecting me to be stupid. She's like, oh, you just need to sign it. It's going to be convenient because then you'll be able to just access, you know, the gated community with your phone, the thermostat. You can access it from your home, and it's an entire smart home, right? And I'm like, it was interesting because I'm sitting there, I'm reading the contract before I assign my name on the line, and the first thing it says is you are giving consent to the provider and to the owner, right, to have remote access to all of this technology out of your phone. And then it gets even worse, and it's like you are also giving consent to give third-party data that we compile on your phone directly. It doesn't even explain what data. And I'm sitting there reading this, and like I'm like, hey, I'm not signing this. I was like, what kind of data? Like, what are you guys talking about here? You're gonna have remote access to my thermostat? I can't say where I live, but I'm pretty sure people will find out where it is. But like, I'm not. That's how they take it away. And it's like, I'm saying, this was the interesting part, Tim, because when I started like saying that, pushing back and asking questions, she came in and she was like, yeah, the lawyers told us that, if there are people that think it's kind of weird, and they push back, they told me to just let them know. And I'm like, so if I don't sign this, am I going to get kicked out where I'm living? She's like, no, it's fine. We just wanted to see how many signatures we could get.
Wow.
Well, they already started doing this at my apartment. I came back one day and they replaced my key lock with one of those touchpads so that they can get in at any time and look at the apartment. And I'm sure I already signed it away when I first signed. But I think this points to the bigger cultural phenomenon that we've been sold on this society of convenience.
Yeah.
And it's a lie. It's a total hoax, right? That if you get something more convenient, that you're going to be happier. And this has been happening forever, right? We went from the fax machine to the email, or the horse buggy to the car, and all these modes of communication and transportation that are supposed to make our lives better and more convenient. Are we any less stressed? Are we any less anxious? Are we any less busy? And so people already know, and they've already seen that we will sell our freedoms for convenience. So why not push it a little bit further? Why not put a microchip in your body, and that'll help you read your own body levels better and your blood level. And they talked about this at the World Economic Forum.
It's not just that, but it goes the other way too. There's a video of a guy in like the early 1900s, and he was around during the Civil War, really, really old man. And they asked him at the time, like, how do you feel about how technology has changed from when you were a kid till now? Because in their minds, like the automobile, wow, how crazy, back in the Civil War. And he said, oh, it's the same. It's all the same. People were happy. People are happy then. People are happy now. People had to get stuff. They're stressed then. They're stressed now. It was things like that. And, I think about that. We look at the technology we have right now and act like everything's so great. But in 50 years, maybe we will have hover packs and flying cars and teleportation or who knows what. We're not stressed out that we can't teleport right now. We're not sitting here being like, I can't teleport, life sucks.
Maybe when you're in traffic.
Maybe. But what I mean is, people who lived in the 1700s were satisfied with the level of technology they had. It was all they knew. And as things got better, people adapted to those better things. That's what the World Economic Forum sees. They see that people in 1850, they were happy. They didn't need air conditioning. Sure, there was sadness. People had died of stub your toe, get an infection, and die. But nowadays, people have become so spoiled and egotistical. And the example I'll give is healthcare. There are people saying healthcare is a human right. And my immediate logical, rebuttal is, if the technology doesn't exist to cure someone, is it your right? The answer is no. But then if the technology gets invented and one cure is made because it was just invented, who has that right to it? Right. Technology, so this is the issue. The World Economic Forum sees that human beings can be happy with things being taken away from them, and that's their goal. Put everybody back down to the early 1900s, 1800s level of technology, they'll adapt to it, they'll adhere, and they'll be happy, and then we'll sit atop Elysium with our flying cars.
Yeah, while they continue to innovate, move forward, and control.
There's a level of convenience you're mentioning where they're replacing your locks on your door so that they get access. It would be convenient if someone slipped into my shower and washed my back for me and my armpits, but I'm not into it. I don't need it, thanks. No, don't need that level of convenience.
Yeah, but it's like, if you look at these excerpts from books or whatever, articles from 50, 100 years ago, and they ask people, what do you think the technology is going to be like in 100 years? They do talk about flying cars and hover pads, but it goes to what you were saying, that, the elite are going to have that. The elite can have access to that, but it's not for the masses, right? The masses get the Bluetooth toaster and the fridge that talks to you. It's like, why do I need a fridge that talks to me? But people like it, and the masses are sold on that.
Yeah, man. So with all that happening, let's jump to this story from Tipcast.com. White House doubles down on Biden's semi-fascism claim about MAGA Republicans. It's sad, it's pathetic that Biden said this, that Karine Jean-Pierre, how you pronounce it, reaffirmed it, but it is kind of worrying when the president is now starting to embrace the extremist rhetoric. It's one thing when he said he was going to be a great uniter and bring them together, and now he's continually doing the exact opposite. It makes me worried about what he wants what the establishment wants for this country.
Was that in reference to the tweet that he put up, or his team, his handlers put up about pissing off moms? Like the mega Republicans have pissed off the
No, he said
moms?
they were embracing semi-fascism.
Okay, so this is a separate tweet.
Here we go.
Yeah, that's the thing, dude. It's like it's the continued gaslighting. You know, you almost get exhausted talking about it. It's like we know these people are the bastards. They're the ones that are pro-lockdown. They're the ones that are, you know, hailing the FBI, going after the political enemies. They're the ones that are literally calling the SWAT Marjorie Taylor Greene. And we know why.
3 times.
3 times. And like, oh, there's a trans person's life. The trans person's life is in danger. Like, literally, we know why. Because they wanted to
What happened was, is that what they claimed at her house? They said
the 911 call.
they said it was a trans person at her house.
The 911 call.
I think it's like a deeper issue too, right? It's like this idea that your political opponent doesn't just disagree with you because they disagree with you and the things that they disagree with you on makes them an evil person. It makes them reprehensible. It makes them that we can't be part of the same country. And you saw this with Kathy Hochul in New York too recently, where she was telling her constituents that voted red or voted for the right, the Republican, get on an airplane, get on a bus, and go down to Florida where you belong because you're not a New Yorker. And so it's like this winner-take-all kind of mindset in politics that if we win, then everybody else that voted against us is a terrible human being, and I don't want to share a country with you. Right? It's not just you voted different because you may live in upstate New York and you're a farmer and you have prerogatives and different things that you care about. It's you're an evil person.
What is semi-fascism?
You know what I think it is? I think if
Like, what does that even mean?
it means if he came out and said fascist, he'd have nowhere to go. So he needs to be able to one-up it. So now in 2023, 24, election season, he's going to be like, they've gone to full fascism now.
Yeah, but that was 2016 to 2020.
Yeah, but now he's talking about the regular people. It's like they're trying to find a way to go away from Trump and then take whatever anger they had towards Trump and apply it to everyone.
Well, they already did this with the the moms and the school boards, right? It was like Merrick Garland calling these school moms, domestic terrorists.
I guess I could see that. I see the escalation there. Because, like, 2016 to 2020 was, like, Trump's a fascist, refuse fascism, Antifa calling out, saying that, this is the second coming of Adolf Hitler, referring to Trump. But that was, like, the rhetoric of the extremists on the left, like, on the ground, right? Because I hear that, I'm like, that's nothing new. But I guess now hearing it, like, officially from, like, the top Democrat in the White House is the rhetoric goes from Antifa, Black Lives Matter, these psychos on the left. I think that's a testament to who's really behind him right now. Which it's not a surprise, right?
Very like this use of the term fascist is kind of insane because what do you call fascism? Corporate government collusion. I mean, that's like Mussolini's fascism, when the state and corporations come together for the greater empowerment of the state. We've got the FBI is working with Facebook, with all the social media companies. We've got slave labor in China where we're getting our clothing from. Like, it's the system is fascist. We're built on a fascist system. We're all semi-fascist because we're participating in it. So,
But there are
end
people-
of story. Quit blaming people for it.
Well, there are people who oppose it, and then Biden is actively in it while accusing you of doing it.
I'd like to know what their opposition really entails, because speaking out against it but then still doing it is not an opposition. It's foe. It's if anything, it's hypocritical.
Yeah, but it's only fascism, like, technically to them, if it's coming directly from the government. Like, they're circumnavigating that by, even with the Zuckerberg thing. Like,
I disagree. Like, they're cheering on the fence. It's only fascism if it opposes them. And it could, like, literally anything. You could be a kid selling candy bars and then be like, you're dumb, and they'll be like, fascist.
I'm interested.
You've got the FBI raiding the former president's home, unprecedented. You've got COVID lockdowns, and they're still calling you, the dude who's like, can I cut someone's hair? I'm a barber. No, you're a fascist. It's like,
DeSantis too. That's like Charlie Crist is going with that narrative. DeSantis is a fascist.
well, Charlie Crist called him a dictator. Did you see that? He called him a dictator a couple days ago, and he was like, DeSantis was like, dude, I was lifting the measures. I was trying to let people live their lives.
Trump wasn't calling out the military during the riots, which many people thought he should have.
I think he should have. Day two, I thought he should have. I actually told you that day two. It was like, this is going to get out of control. Put the National Guard in there right now.
There are still too many people who think they can convince fascists that they're not fascists. You know what I mean? They're like, you call me a fascist, but I'm not. I swear, bro. Half these people, they know full well you're not a fascist. You're not going to convince them. Donald Trump trying to win over the mainstream media is just laughably dumb. Like, he's giving them interviews, and then what do they do every single time? They lie about him, they smear him, and he keeps doing it.
Yeah, it kind of like goes backwards on his initial like fake news, swipes, 2015 and on. But you know what's interesting about this claim? Semi-fascism, according to the White House, claim about mega Republicans. I just love how these people wrap everyone in this title.
What does that mean? What is a mega
The blacks, right? The black mega Republicans, the brown mega Republicans, all the minorities get wrapped in one. Like, it's just so mind-blowing that these are the same people that are like, oh, we're anti-racist and we're going to defeat white supremacy. We're going to defeat systemic racism. But you know what? Let's just wrap all of you in one little freaking box and put you in one little fascist box. You're the enemies, you mega black. You're the enemy, you mega brown. That's the rhetoric of these people.
Yeah.
And like, people need to wake up, because it's like, dude, stop believing that it's literally like an agenda. Like, people need to understand. It is a political tactic to prop themselves up as the saviors of these races. People need to know that.
I think a large component of it is rooted in nothing. It is literally nothing. When you have prominent individuals who have their roots in nothing, they'll say anything. And so they end up making videos where they'll say anything for the sake of adhering to the cult. For example, like on this show, for instance, I think it was Nina Turner. She tweeted out that credit scores were created in 1989 and to keep poor people poor, and it should be abolished. And I said, agreed. I think the credit scoring system is BS and should be gotten rid of. Yeah. Absolutely. You want to give a loan to somebody? There should be a credit scoring system where we have no accountability to how they do it. I've had instances where companies will put a derogatory mark on my credit and I can't do anything about it. Screw that, and they're BS. Yeah. She's right. And she's a fringe, like, she's a very lefty. We've criticized her heavily, but I'll shout her out for being right. But there are many of these political commentators you'll see on the left who will never do that. In fact, my favorite example, when we did a segment on conservatives being more attractive than liberals, because science shows it, the Young Turks insulted me, called me ugly, and then went, but he's right. What was the point of that?
I don't think being conservative
like
doesn't make you more attractive. It's that attractive people tend toward conservatism because they're happy with the status quo, because they're getting things given
exactly.
to them.
And that was what we were saying. It's the idea of privilege.
Well, because these people claimed that like working out and being healthy is like a symbol of white supremacy.
Now they're upset about it, that people have privilege or whatever.
What really bothers me about this is this divide and conquer mentality of like the MAGA Republicans being evil is like, it's what Mao's communist uprising did in China. Is they had the red class and the black class, and it was like, if you were a communist in the party, you were red, and if you were not, then you were part of this black class, and the other kids at the school would know, and they would make fun of the kids whose parents were in the black, and so they had to, like, the way to get entrance into the red class, which was the okay one, is you'd have to turn someone in, or turn your parents.
This is what they're doing.
It's a cult.
It feels like that. It's a divide and conquer, and it's really low, either low intelligence strategy, or it's insidious and it's on purpose. I can't figure it out.
I just want to shout out one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time was Hassan Piker doing a video review of a song we released 2 years ago, Will of the People, where he was saying it was wrong, and it was like, he called it awesome, but I don't know if he was saying that was like ironic or whatever, but he was criticizing it, saying it was just not good and stuff like that. And the comments were people saying, I actually liked that song, I have it in my playlist, oh no, I didn't realize that was Tim Pool. And that's the funny thing about it. You like the song is good, the message is good, and then you found out it was for me, and then you got mad and didn't like it. That's a cult.
No, they got mad and they still liked it.
Maybe, but they have to tell it. So this is the thing, right? Nickelback, for instance, a great example of this. If look, man, I just gotta say, if one day someone held up a sign that said Rahm Emanuel likes Nickelback, and then all of a sudden Nickelback became band non grata. It was like, if you like Nickelback, you're not fun, you're not cool, you're a loser, even though they have multiple top 10 hits. I just have to say, not my jam. But clearly people like it if they were number one for 4 weeks straight, which is kind of crazy. It's like that's a feat to perform. But all of these leftists are like, Nickelback is dumb, because all they know how to do is parrot each other and say what is acceptable. A good example, when I was at the Battle for Berkeley, not the battle, a Battle for Berkeley, there were many of them, and I was staying on the street with my GoPro and my gimbal, and I was filming Some woman walks up to me and started talking about all of this stuff. And then I asked her, a woman got knocked down to the ground and had her head cracked open. Did she deserve that? And she said, well, she shouldn't have been supporting Trump. And I said, so you think because she supported Trump, it was okay for people to just go and attack her? She's like, yes. And then I was like, so if like a woman was wearing skimpy clothes and walked into a bunch of men and they attacked her, it'd be her fault? And she goes, yeah. And then I was like, okay. Then a few minutes, like we leave, she walks away, we wrap up. She walks back over and she's like, delete it. She said things that weren't approved by the mob. I blurred her face. I don't have any interest in, getting her life destroyed. But it was clear that when you try to interview many of these people, they don't do it, and this is exactly why. The exact reason why the left will not come out onto this show, but conservatives will do it all day and night, is because conservatives are individualists who have their own ideas, and the left are in a cult, and they don't know what's approved and what's not.
I feel like that even goes toward to what Joe Rogan was saying in his endorsement of Republicans. It's like you might lean left or be more independent, but these people that are going like all or nothing. It's like I might lean that way, but to call everybody a MAGA Republican that you disagree with is just evil, and I can't support that.
What is MAGA Republican anyways? Are these the people that think Trump won the election and they voted for Trump?
Well, is this a new term? Like in this context, at least?
Are they getting away from Trump supporter?
No, I think MAGA Republican just refers to the new right. Like, that's a problem. That's
the MTG, Matt Gaetz.
There are cultists. There are people that are like, Trump's my president, I love Trump. Like, those people, cultism in general is pretty bad. You don't really want to fall into a cult of any kind. But, just because you voted for Donald Trump or you have questions about the election doesn't make you like a cultist. Doesn't make you a cultist. Right now, you have to vote for somebody if you're going to vote.
Right now, the MAGA Republicans are split between Trump and DeSantis. On the left, they all marched in lockstep behind Joe Biden and still post insane defenses of him. Granted, I understand the leftists don't like Joe Biden, but they all made videos talking about why you had to vote for him, which is crazy. Joe Biden was establishment. Donald Trump was anti-establishment. If you claim to be a revolutionary who supported the establishment, for what reason? The argument for, if you were a leftist who wanted a revolution, Trump was your guy. He was destroying everything, wasn't he? He was going to fire the bureaucratic state and purge civil servants. For what good reason would you defend the establishment unless you're lying and you're a reactionary fascist who wants to turn the clock back to the 1950s and create racial segregation? As one example.
It's like their superpower, though, right? Like we split our support among these candidates. They hate the right or they hate Trump more than we love, one like group or our ideologies or our freedoms. Or like, isn't that like a superpower that they have?
I think they genuinely hate black and brown people. Even my run-in with Katie Hobbs on Saturday, like, I typically don't do content like that, but it just was so necessary because people need to understand she's running for governor of Arizona as a Democrat, right? She's literally a convicted racist, like 2 times. She discriminated against black people. So I go to this Arizona, put on by the Arizona Democrat Party, her little event where she's speaking, she's pointing the finger at Republicans. Republicans are this, Republicans are that. And here I am as a brown guy just standing up and asking her a question. Hey, well, what about you, Katie? Why don't you explain to the people about you being a convicted racist? Because you literally discriminated against black people. And who are the ones that got up and immediately literally put hands on me and escorted me physically out of the building? They deported me. It was the woke whites. The woke whites are the ones who immediately go after me, put hands on me, and I'm like, are you guys really doing this right now? Like the Democrats of Arizona are deporting a person of color. They're deporting a Latino because I'm calling out Katie Hobbs' racist record.
Yeah, what did she do exactly?
So during her little administration, when she was, in office, I think as senator, I believe, she literally, a black woman was working for her, Miss Adams, and she discovered that her white colleagues were making more money than she was. So she came out and called it out and asked some questions and said why. Okay, and apparently she went on a paid leave or a paid vacation that was already scheduled, and during that vacation, she was fired, let go.
Wow.
So she clapped back, sued them, and she won. Okay, this is just one of them. She won. I think it was like $3 million, but it was capped at $300K or something, right? So Katie Hobbs is a convicted discriminator against black people. Okay, so the reason why I bring this up is like, if Katie Hobbs was a Republican, this would be headline news everywhere. If Katie Hobbs had an R next to her name, I would have done the same thing, same scenario, and I would have been hailed a champion, and I probably would have been invited on CNN to come out and talk about it tonight. The point I'm trying to make is, I made these points because we all get this. I know, Tim, this is just like simple, basic stuff. But I know there are people out there that do not even understand how this simulation works. How is it that I can't do that? As a brown man, that these people claim they champion, and we don't want to deport Hispanics, but the moment I come out and I call out a legitimate case of racism, but because she has a D next to her name, she gets a pass, and the brown guy gets deported because they're the real racists. I just make the point to say it's a cult. These people do not care about us. They do not care about brown people. They do not care about black people. They only care about their power and how they're perceived.
And if they can get in the cult. Yep. Bend the knee. That's the culture they want to build. I had a guy messaging me over the weekend, and he said that the reason he hates me, he posted a comment, is because I'm shattering consensus reality. And I was like, wow. Like, you just come out and admit it. Like, you're aware that you're in a cult and you're mad that I'm waking people up. Is that it?
So it wasn't that you said anything that was, factually wrong. It was that you were breaking, what do they call it, consensus reality?
In order to keep people trapped, you have to lie, keep them in the dark, and don't let them see the light. And that's why people like Brian Stelter, he was like, don't go and watch Fox News. That's propaganda. Yeah, if you went and watch Tucker Carlson, for instance, you might be like, he's kind of a dick, but he's right. Like, he says, here's the thing, and then you're like, let me check the thing. And you're like, oh, the thing is true. He kind of delivers it in a snarky way sometimes. A lot of people like it. He's a big show. Some people might not like it, but he's not wrong. He's wrong sometimes, everybody is. But that's the issue. They don't want you being able to see it.
Yeah, I think it's the metaphor I keep feeling is like if there's a governor of a city that's about to be invaded, the governor tells everyone, hey, everything's going to be fine. Make sure everyone wakes up. There's no fear of anything. All that thing you heard about invasion is just rumors. And then when the city is invaded, the people are still there. They defend the city. They win. As opposed to a governor that's like, hey, everyone, we're going to be invaded. And everyone freaks out and flees the city. Then when the city's invaded, it's conquered. So they think that their lying is justified because it's keeping people calm. And that maybe when we transfer to this new world order, that the Americans' stability will remain because we didn't panic. But they got to see that the lying is causing people to panic. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's always fear. It's always like everything. That's why everything's a phobia. Phobia is attached to everything. Transphobia, homophobia. If it's not that, it's some kind of virus that's going to come and kill everyone. But what about the virus? No, we don't need to know. It's the same thing Jim Jones did, right? The Jonestown cult, right? I was listening to this, some audiobooks on the way in, and I was just like kind of making the parallels. Like this, Jim Jones operated through fear. It was pure fear. He like in the Jonestown cult, like every night they would have like the white nights, where every single night he would psychologically prepare them to die and to suicide themselves for him every single night. Like he would come out, hey, tonight's the night we're gonna do it. He would push it entirely, and he was psychologically engineering them through fear every single night, but no, this was just a test, until finally that night came where they all were willing and ready to suicide themselves because it was literally fear. He could accomplish that power through fear. I
want to go back to
some of the horrors.
I want to go back to something that
to.
Ian was. Ian made a point, and I want to bring the story up. It's from the New York Post. Abercrombie deletes ad after tweet storm over normalizing obesity. I saw this image, and I want to start out by saying I'm not trying to be mean to this woman. I don't know who she is, but I want to say one thing. Will the Air Force not let us actually get the image in there? She needs help. She needs serious help. And I'm not saying to be mean. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. This woman, her life is in danger. Her pants are being used as a hammock for her stomach. I am not trying to be mean or disrespectful. This is no way intended to do that. It's to make a point. I'm sure she's a nice person, but she is suffering from morbid or moribund obesity. It's a large principal cause of cancer, precursor to cancer. Your heart will fail. You will die. People are making this into a job. They're rewarding it. And when I see this, it's just one component of what I see as, you call it cultural decay in the United States. I'm going to call it outright societal collapse. If we normalize morbid and moribund obesity, in how many generations do we have? 1, 2, when our population is collapsing and unable to sustain itself. So Abercrombie, I would say, in a case for optimism, deleted the ad. But there was that famous story in London, it was in the UK, I think it was, where they had this ad as Beachbody Ready. Do you guys remember this? and it was a thin woman in a bikini, and then all of these fat activists got angry and said it was fat phobic or shaming, so they replaced it with like a similar ad of morbidly and moribundly obese women. I'm just saying, when I see this stuff, you talk about the cult. If anybody, cult, fat phobia, and all these other phobias is leading in one direction and societal collapse. And I'm not talking about, oh no, you know, if two men get married, society will collapse. No, I'm totally fine with gay marriage. That's fine. Actually, I think marriage is a good institution, and there, you know, I'm sure the conservatives have their arguments against it or whatever, but I don't think that will destroy society. What I think will destroy society is when, outside of that, you tolerate the targeting of children. Outside of that, you actually tell people that they can be moribundly obese, and it is marketable, and we'll pay you to do it. And it's like when your society starts telling you that, it's falling down.
But that's like real compassion, right? Like you're looking at this woman and saying, you're not living a good quality of life. I want something better for you. And I think it ties into this bigger idea in our society of like tolerance, right? If you don't tolerate everything, then you're bigoted or you're hateful. It's like, no, I actually have my ideas that are rooted in something. And, you know, British journalist Douglas Murray talks about this. He calls this year zero. That today, you know, we think that we are smarter and we know more than everybody that came before us. And none of your ideas are rooted in anything. And that's dangerous because if it's not rooted in anything, then the people that come after you can also uproot whatever you've just built. And so it's not compassionate to have to glorify this, right? It's not compassionate to let a 10-year-old decide what gender they are, because we have things that we look to our past and say, well, this isn't right. Well, we need to fix this. But we're being sold on this fake idea of tolerance, this fake idea of compassion, and it's leading our society to complete decay.
Evil. It is 100%. It is evil, in my opinion, to go to someone. Like, I make the joke when we got these cookies. They're Oreo cookies with birthday cake filling, dipped in fudge, covered in sprinkles, with a sugar-printed image that says "Step on Snack and Find Out" on top. And the joke is, when I hand it to people, I say it's evil to do this. It is because these things are extremely bad for you. But the reality is, like, in saying that, it's a warning, basically. Like, I always tell people, like, dude, one cookie is 130 calories and like 18 to 20 carbs, so and it's addictive. But here you have people who they go to these people and they tell them, eat a pint of Ben and Jerry's all to yourself. It's fine. You shouldn't be ashamed of who you are. That's like giving someone poison and trying to addict them to something, and then like you're not helping them. Like, I'm sure opiates feel good. We aren't happy that doctors are overprescribing them. You are not helping someone by getting them addicted to these drugs. I feel the same way about so much in the society. The reality is, hard work is a better gift. This is the challenge. If your message is, work hard, work out, and you will feel better than ever, but people are like, in the short term, it sucks, it hurts. Then the other people come by and say, here's a glazed donut with a double cheeseburger, a Luther burger, and it will taste good right now. What they're not telling you is that you will suffer for this curse. And they're telling you they're the good guys doing it. We want people to roll up their sleeves and work hard, and they will feel better. They will be happier. They will clear their minds. And that's the hard message. So telling people, work hard, pay back your loans, you took a loan out, well, that's so mean. No, free ride.
Nothing good comes easy, man. And, you know, I think it's all tied together. The tolerance, the convenience, right? All these people that they have Amazon, the big flat screen TV, smoking pot, eating their glazed donuts, like, are they happy? They were told that they would be happy, but they're not. They're sad, they're empty, they're fat, and so, I mean, we have to pick out things in our society that we need to be intolerant of, right? Not in the sense that we should hate people, like, I don't hate her, like you just said, but we need to decide what is right, what makes us happy, what is actually good. But it's this scare tactic that if you oppose anything, then you're bigoted, then you're hateful. Right? I'm not tolerant of murderers. I'm not tolerant of parents, Drew, that take their kids to drag shows. And we need to be. We need to draw the line somewhere. And they're erasing every line everywhere.
But it's this idea, so I was driving in the car and that song by Taylor Swift came on. What is it called? You Need to Calm Down.
Love T-Swift.
T-Swift, yeah, the song is like, it's a little bit about cancel culture. The second verse is about homophobes and transphobes and all that stuff. And it's like, it's this idea that people only criticize a behavior because they hate a person is just wrong. But here's the funny thing. When I hear that, and she's singing the song, and she's like, you need to stop just talking about all the reasons you hate this person. And I'm like, the conversations we have here with people who are concerned about, like, drag shows for children, they're not saying that it's just because they hate someone. They're not looking at the person and being like, oh, I just hate them. They're saying, hey, what are you doing to those kids? It's about an action and towards kids. For the most part, I was at an event in the UK and there was a drag queen on stage or whatever. One going after kids, nobody cares. I've been at Trump events where there have been transgender Trump supporters. Nobody cares. They don't hate them. They hate the actions when you target and do, like a child and do something corrupt. In this instance, with the Abercrombie and Fitch, it's just a long line and a big story about getting people to gorge themselves until they're in serious jeopardy. That is not compassion.
Well, this goes back to what I was saying. These people hate you, right? Like, if I'm sitting here telling you it's okay to be unhealthy, keep being unhealthy. See how that goes. You should be as unhealthy as physically possible. That's not a statement of care. That's a statement of hate. That's the real hate, right? If I come out and say, you know what, it's fine, mutilate the genitals of your children, that is going to go so well for them. That is going to make them so happy in the future, even though they have no idea why they're doing what they're doing. Keep doing that. It's going to go so well in the future. It's a statement of hate. That means you hate somebody.
But and maybe they want there to be less people. But when I look at a lot of this, I look at a message that says, what is the end result of all of the things they're saying? From, we're talking about the morbid obesity being normalized to the, just the abortion at the point of birth. The end result of this, whether it's intentional or not, will be less people. Pain and suffering and death, and then people being unable to reproduce, and then people not having kids. So I look at that and I'm like, I'm not saying anyone who's pushing for fat acceptance or whatever is trying to reduce population. I'm saying the end result will be, regardless of what you want, less people. Now, China's not doing this. In fact, they're doing the opposite. They're not letting these messages persist on TikTok in China, but in the US they are. So what's going to happen? The US is crumbling. China is also having their own economic problems, but in the social ways, they're rejecting it. They're doing these ads like to promote masculinity and stuff like that. Meanwhile, they're using their app in the U.S. to push wokeness.
What app exactly? TikTok. That's ByteDance, the Chinese company.
Yep, and spying on people.
You talk about compassion, I'm thinking about like raising a kid, and a kid that like maybe the kid goes and steals something from the store and comes home. What's the compassionate thing to do? It's okay, don't worry about it. I love you anyway. That's not. I don't think it's compassion. It's that kid. You lose your privileges. You return that. You apologize. You cry about it. You feel horrible about it. You feel, you feel humiliated. Then you come home and you lose electricity in your bedroom. Now we're shutting up the breaker. You're in your room. You cannot stay over your friend's house on the weekends. You have to be home at 5 p.m. every day for 3 months. Like, that's maybe hardcore, but that will teach the kid, don't steal. Do not destroy society. That, I think, is compassion. As horrible and as hard as it is to do that to a kid. Like, you're guiding these wild animals. Like, what, is it compassionate to shear the sheep, yet we do it anyway? I don't know.
Actually, it is. The sheep like it.
Yeah, they do.
Well, you hear screaming when their legs are tied up. It's another question.
Well, there's some things you do to farm animals they don't like.
Yeah, that's true.
Forced insemination.
I'll make like the religious the religious analogy or the Christian analogy of when God punishes you or when you sin. And Drew, I don't know about you, but we have a set of rules, right? We have a set of ideologies that we are rooted in. And you may disagree with the ideology or with religion, but when we sin, we're told you have to atone for these sins. You have to confess. And don't you always feel great when you confess and you say, I did this wrong. Let me try to have some forgiveness. And that's like coming from God, right? And it's the same thing with kids. That you have somebody over you telling you this is right and this is wrong. And that's why I think maybe some of these people hate us, but I don't think everybody does. I think it really is rooted in a lack of ideas, right? They don't have roots in anything. And it's running amok. I mean, we're seeing it in real time.
Well, because they've been convinced that liberalism, right? They've been convinced that liberalism means just all hands are off. You can't have a functioning society without any kind of rule of law, because then you run into stuff like this. If we're just void of rule of law in a society, then the the sexualizing of kids is okay in a society like that.
Because you can.
Who the hell are you to say anything? You're a fascist. You're telling me that I can't touch your kid? You're a fascist. That's where these people's minds are. There has to be some kind of moral code in society, or else the society cannot function.
There is no more. Like the moral code is been destroyed, and with the drag kid stuff, people say, well, their parents, they can decide what they want their kid to do. But why is it not okay for a parent to give their kid a bottle of Jack and say, well, it's my kid, I can allow him to drink? Well, they say that's harmful to them. It's physically harmful, and you cannot do that. That's a societal standard that we've set.
It's culture and values.
Why are we not allowed to set societal standards when it comes to morality? Right? Like 50 years ago, if you taught the Communist Manifesto in school, you'd probably get fired as a teacher. But now you can teach kids about sexuality. They have these transition closets. Why are we not, like, where is it going? Why is there no structure at all?
There is a rejection of that. There's been a rejection of that. But there is a very deep-seated cult that is trying very, very hard to maintain these things. Like, wokeness in this country is not that prominent, but they are influential because they've seated themselves in our institutions. So what's happening now is I hear it in every facet. There's police officers who are like, oh, I don't want to say too much because I'll lose my job. There are FBI agents who are like, if I speak, I'll lose my job. And then what happens? The cult and the establishment get to do whatever they want because the people who know what's going on are too scared to speak up. And it's really frustrating, and that is a major black pill. Now, when you look at least the elections over the past few months, major white pill. When you take a look at Abercrombie pulling that ad, I'd say it's a white pill. I'm feeling rather optimistic, but it is really frustrating every day when it's just like people are too scared to actually just say, nah.
Yeah, after 2001 and 9/11, the Patriot Act got signed, and I feel like it bred a generation of psychopaths. No offense if you were raised in this situation, you just don't know that your lack of understanding about the danger of the Patriot Act is. If you don't realize that the Patriot Act is a complete subversion of everything that the United States Constitution was meant to stand for, then you've fallen for this lack of morality. And then I went through a phase where I was like, well, if we're doing evil around the world, if we're invading and conquering Iraq for weapons of mass destruction that didn't actually exist, then how can I criticize the Chinese government for having people in camps? I don't have a moral authority to do that. So I actually went through a phase where I was like, I can't be a moral arbiter anymore because the United States is doing such evil things. But I realized, like, just because the Patriot Act is evil, I think it's an evil act, doesn't mean that we can't stand up for what's right when we know it's right, or if we believe it's right. We still have an opportunity, and we have a responsibility to do. If we don't do it, no one will.
Not only should you, but you have to.
Well, I think this is like the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, right? People are coming out, the Newsweek letters or the Newsweek articles with Richie coming out and saying that he's not a hero. That's fine. He can have his opinion. That's cool, right? But in that situation, I think that was the perfect example of this because you had 2020 on full lockdowns. You had these riots that were made mainstream and they were normalized. Kenosha was on fire for 3 days straight.
But mostly peaceful.
Right? Mostly peaceful. And the rioters were the ones that brought guns first on night one. I was there, right?
Well, let me pull the story.
Let
me pull the story so we can get some context into. We have this from Newsweek. It's from Richie McGinnis. He's a good friend of the show. It says, I was in Kenosha 2 years ago. Kyle Rittenhouse is not a hero. There's a lot to go through in his op-ed to understand his position. He says, before the shooting started at 11:36 p.m. on August 25th, 2020, I ran into Kyle Rittenhouse in front of a gas station and interviewed him for several minutes. He was a 17-year-old kid with a semi-automatic rifle, and he was playing cop, surrounded by people who didn't want him there. Rittenhouse didn't see it that way. Quote, so people are getting injured, and our job is to protect this business, and part of my job is also to help people. He told me for the third night in a row, half of downtown Kenosha was ablaze. When there's somebody hurt, I'm running into harm's way. 13 minutes later, Rittenhouse standing feet from me would kill one man. A few minutes after that, he'd kill another. Then he'd maim a third. Interesting thing is, unless we have to read the whole piece, I'm not going to do it. Richie mentions that he remained neutral, kept his opinion to himself, so that he could be a witness on the stand. And he pushed back when when the prosecutors tried claiming that Rittenhouse wasn't being threatened. He was like, Rosenbaum said "F you" and then reached for the gun, things like that. But Richie, Drew, you were there and you read this article, so you should give your position and give your argument.
I was in the trial too. I'm not going to attack Richie here, right? Richie can have his own opinion. That's fine. That's cool. but I was there too, okay? I saw the same exact things. I watched Joseph Rosenbaum get shot. I was right behind Richie when he put Rosenbaum in the back of the ambulance. All that same trauma.
They were hitting him?
I witnessed it too, yes. I witnessed it too, all that same trauma. But the real question here is Kyle Rittenhouse really